One. Well, hey, Dave Molenda here, Positive Polarity Podcast. Hope things are going awesome for you this week. I got a great question because it actually helped me remember back. So I want you to remember the dream you had for your business when you first started. And I thought about that and I was like, man, I remember that. And I was so young and I thought, I'm going to set my own hours. I'm going to hardly work. I mean, I had all these great dreams and ideas. And, somehow I didn't realize that dream and some things got in the way. And so I want to unpack that today with my guest, Philip Blackett. How are you today, sir?
Good, Dave. How about you?
I'm good. You are an author and a consultant, an entrepreneur, and so I love your book, Disagree Without Disrespect. We'll talk about that. I want to start though, kind of from your perspective, Philip. Do you remember your dream? Did you have a dream of building a business when you first got started?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm in the midst of trying to realize that dream now, the second time around, or third or fourth time around, I should say. Um,
Sure.
so yeah, when I first was thinking about entrepreneurship, it was one where, I was like in middle school and my mom got me exposed to reading books like Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and reading magazines like Entrepreneur Magazine, Black
Oh,
Enterprise Magazine. And so I think a lot of that was really what helped jumpstart the thoughts in my head as far as
sure.
what would it be like to quote unquote be your own boss, set your own hours, reach financial freedom, right? All
Yeah.
these different terms and keywords, which, now that you live a number of years, you kind of see that history kind of repeats itself. They kind of keep using the same terms. It's just
You're
more
right.
so, do
Exactly.
you achieve them versus just saying these
Right.
terms that keep on being commonplace. But yeah, I think back then for me, like part of that dream was I wanted to do something that was significant. I wanted to do something that would help out a lot of people, that was in line with my own values and principles, and was something that I felt could be proud to be associated with
Sure.
and wouldn't embarrass my family as far as like my wife and kids. Um, and I think we have the right balance of not only just providing for myself and my family, not just from a financial standpoint, but also the type of lifestyle and schedule that will allow me to build the type of relationships and memories with my family, um, that would be heartfelt, that would be
Right.
ones that I would have with more of a smile versus some of the memories I had growing up where that wasn't the case.
Sure. Wow. Well, there's a ton there. So I wrote down significance, values, principles, proud to do it, and provide in a lifestyle. So I kind of want to start. I mean, what age did you think significance was important? It's interesting that that was like your first word, something that was significant, whether in your eyes or in the eyes of other people around you. How early was that for you, Philip, that significance was really important?
I think like significance for me like was like high school. I think
Okay.
I had a different definition of significance back then versus now,
Sure.
as a caveat. But back then it was more so the sense like significance as in like, celebrity, notable, like famous, rich and
Yeah.
famous. Look at me, look at my cars, look at what I have. Like I'm significant. Like you're seeing
Sure.
your own significance and value based off what you have
Yep.
accumulated, and what others can see from afar, which nowadays can be the same sort of metrics, so to speak, if you want to call it that. But now, 20 years later, you got other metrics that are more vanity, as in, like, look at how many followers I have. Look how many
Yeah.
likes I got. Look how many comments I got. Look how many shares I got. I am the most followed person in my space. Who knows?
Right.
I stopped keeping track of that a long time ago. But
Right.
yeah, I think that part of it, Dave, was just understanding, you know, my definition of significance changed over time as I grew up
Sure.
and as I continued to live life and start to really ask myself these questions of what is significant to me at this point in my life. And I think what's more about significance is allowing me to provide the type of life I want for me and my family,
Yeah.
and also to be of value to people that I serve in a way that impacts them beyond just the business itself, but it
Wow.
also changes people's lives for the better.
Yeah. Well, and I was fine with what you said about all that until you got into number of likes and all that, because I still like that's still I have to watch myself not to watch that because like you said, I mean, it's where's the right number? What number would you ever be happy with? I'm guessing, and again, I don't follow a lot of Hollywood people and all that and Instagram, all that. But I mean, if they have like, I don't know, 1 million followers, is that like the threshold? Is 10 million, and then when you get to the million, are you happy there? So I like that you bring in that lifestyle piece. I never thought of it early on for me, Philip, that my business would be I thought it would provide, but I didn't think about it from a lifestyle, like what did you want it to provide? And like you talked about when you were younger, we thought we could set our own schedule, make a ton of money, be on the Robin whatever lifestyles of the rich and famous, we wanted to be on that, right? That was like our goal. But they do change over time, and I don't think that that's a good or bad. I just think that it is. What's your significance now? What do you feel like right now today is your significance out there?
I want to be a active and present husband and father for my kids and my wife. Um, I don't want work to be the sense that it takes me away from them on
Yeah,
a daily basis, just for the sake of earning money or for the sake of growing a business. Um, I don't want it to be the case where my kids were raised without me.
yeah,
Um, I want it to be a sense that, you know, we don't have to be millionaires, but we could be in a sense where we take care of what we need to take care of as far as our needs and our living expenses, and we have a little bit extra where we can do some nice things, like
sure.
take vacations or
Yeah,
like go to different activities and events that don't have to cost a fortune. We don't have to
yeah,
dine at 5-star restaurants or 3-star Michelin type of places. We
yep,
don't have to go on cruises and that sort of thing on a
sure.
every year basis. But I think it's more so, I think for me, really just having the type of family that I'm building with my wife that I wanted ultimately.
Yeah, wow, that's
That's where it
awesome.
comes full circle. And
Yeah,
that's something you can't really put a dollar sign or a vanity metric behind. Because to
yeah, for
me,
sure.
while a lot of people are concerned about like the million likes, the 10 million followers,
Yeah,
I'm concerned ultimately about the 3 likes and the 3 followers first and foremost, because I think my ministry, first and foremost, is me and my household. You know,
yeah,
how do my wife and my kids look at me as a father and as a husband? That's what's more important. I could care
yeah,
less about thousands or millions of followers and likes beyond that. If I don't have
sure.
my family right, I got my
Yeah.
priorities in the wrong place.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I love that verse. What does it profit a man if he gains the whole world and forfeits his own soul? And what
Absolutely.
does it profit us if we gain all this? And I talk to business owners around the country, Philip, and I say, when is enough enough? What does enough look like? And it looks like different things for different people. And I'm not here to say anybody's in a bad spot. So that's not what I'm trying to say. I just know for me, it's like, when is enough enough? And, whatever that looks like. And I think if we get to a point where we can, I don't want to say cruise control, but we aren't always striving because it just feels like if we're always striving for something, we burn so much energy. And like you said, that lifestyle isn't there. And then we're not proud of what we are. And I think that's such a powerful piece. I lost both my parents in the last couple of years, and they were proud of who they were. They weren't super financially well off. They were well off. They were they were proud of who they were as people. So, do you, as an author, consultant, entrepreneur, do you help people with some of those pieces, or how do you help your clients right now?
Yeah, I think for me, like, I'm an author, consultant, entrepreneur. I'm not a life coach. I'm not a therapist. I'm not a pastor at this point,
Mhm.
right? So I definitely kind of had to learn the lane I'm running in and how I could best help people. Um, Definitely I can add life advice on the house complimentary in addition to that if you want a
Uh-oh.
bonus.
Oh,
Um,
cool.
but I think the big thing is just trying to figure out how to help business owners and entrepreneurs grow their dream businesses or the businesses of their dreams before life happened. And I think part of that is understanding that, you know, we have an idea of what we want our business to look like. And usually it's a means to serve ourselves and our families and other people we care about. And whether that's to have more leisure time, whether it's to build better relationships with those you care about, to
Mhm.
create the type of memories that you'll always be able to remember, to not have to quote unquote struggle or be back in hard times as before,
Sure.
and simply to make money to help support that. Like, yeah, like all those different things make sense. And I think at the same time, Dave, it's more so helping people understand, to your point of what's enough.
Yeah.
Um, it's more so figuring out everyone's definition of that is different. And my job is really to help figure out what does that look like and how do you scale, how do you scale your business to a point where it's like, okay, to get to that point of your ideal situation, how can we use your business as a vehicle to help you get to that destination? And how can
Sure.
we, optimize it to do it together
Yeah.
through our work together and with the help of AI as well.
Sure. Well, I tell you, I think about the dream golf swing. I'm not a golfer.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I think about my dream golf swing and I can envision it and I think it looks like it, but it's a huge blind spot for me. My golf swing isn't bad. It just doesn't it's not as the Charles Barkley type of swing, you know. He's got a bad golf swing. But
That's
it's
true.
interesting when you think about that, the dream that you had for your business, did that fade away? And who's helping you? Because I know if I had a coach for my golf swing, it would help. I mean, if Tiger Woods needs a golf swing coach, I need one, right? Do you feel like you're a coach in that consultant thing? Are you coaching people to kind of help them get back to their dream? Or where do you type generally fit in that, Philip?
I think that could be a part of it, Dave. I think that, especially when I talk to business owners and entrepreneurs about how to best approach AI, for example, I think
Mhm.
there is a level of coaching involved because, it's a new technology, for example, um, that a lot of people are having a tough time sometimes trying to get a full grasp of what it means and
Sure,
how it can apply for themselves and their businesses. And sometimes it's helpful to have coaching in a sense to have the right mindset and the right approach to it,
sure.
or to expose people to different ways of looking about growing their business that they didn't think applied to them
Yeah,
or they didn't think was something that made sense. And so having another set of eyes, another lens, or another perspective in a trusted, safe environment and space to be vulnerable and share, hey, I don't know about this or I'm not sure
sure.
about this.
Yeah,
Um, Help me understand it. I think that's very helpful. And if I could
yeah.
provide that, I'm happy to serve that way.
That's awesome. And kind of fast go backwards in your career. So you worked with some bigger named companies. Where did once you were in high school and you thought you knew what you wanted to do, your significance started to form. What did you do after college? Were you in the entrepreneurial space or did you jump into corporate America?
A little bit of both. I think it
Okay,
started out in the corporate space, and then you started to have elements of entrepreneurship as you go along. So, yeah, I
sure.
would say that having a good balance between the two was really helpful for me.
Because we have a lot of people on the show, Philip, that want to start their own business. They want to be in business for themselves. They just have a hard time making that jump. And there's no right or wrong way to do it. Some people, do take 10 years to make that leap. Some people take 10 seconds. So do you remember for yourself when you were working for corporate America and in corporate America and you're like, man, I don't want to do this anymore. Do you remember that jump for yourself?
A number of times.
So
I-
you feel comfortable. What can you share with us? What would be some of the things that you would, tell people to kind of look for, watch for? What are some things that would help the average listener today?
yeah, I think there's some instances I can think of in my short career thus far where, you know, the thought of being in entrepreneurship, it came out either voluntarily or involuntarily. So one example would be, when I got laid off during the Great Recession while working on Wall Street. That was an instance where it's just like, I really do not like this feeling of being laid off. Somebody else dictating to me that I'm no longer needed, my services are no longer required.
Yeah,
And that moment of picking up all your possessions in a banker's box and leaving your colleagues without as much of a goodbye beyond a quick
yeah,
second before you escorted outside as if you did
wow,
something really wrong.
sure,
Um, that's the type of thing that would make you say, hey, how can I avoid living out that situation? Right.
yeah,
Um, Other situation may be I've had some good, managers and leaders I've supported and worked with over the years. I've had some that were not so great. And I think in retrospect, sometimes when you're with a not so great manager or leader, and you start to think to yourself, are there things that this person is doing that I feel confident I could do better? And not to be spiteful, but you say to
sure,
yourself, okay, if this person can do this type of job, even though there's clearly some things I would do differently, can that serve as motivation for me to say, hey, well, what's the difference between me and him?
yeah,
And how can I put myself in a position where, yeah, it may not be with the same caliber of a company, but from a job to job basis, as far as functionality, why not see what we can
sure,
do?
sure,
And even if it's in a different space, even if you're just starting out, like that could be motivation in and of itself to really test the waters and see what that looks like as you
yeah.
continue to grow in that capacity.
Did you have an idea of what you wanted to do as far as the craft or the trade, the service, the product? Did you have an idea what you wanted to do when you were thinking about the world of entrepreneurship?
Not early on. I think
Okay,
it's when you're first exposed, you're kind of seeing glitz and glamour and dollar signs. And so you're not really caring so much, at least for me, how they did it. It was just the fact that
yeah,
they did it.
sure,
And I think what's helpful too, just from my experience, is that sometimes you can look at, you know, your job history as sort of like a buffet. Oftentimes when you go to a buffet, you're seeing what things look appealing for you,
mm,
and you try some things out, and
yeah,
some things you like and you want seconds on, some things you don't want anymore.
yeah,
And so I think that what kind of happens over time is you kind of figure out what are the things you like seconds and thirds on. You say, well, if I could just eat this going forward, I think I'll be fine. And
yeah,
maybe that's what you want to build a business off of.
sure. Wow. How was your wife in that? Was she okay with you? Were you married when you quit corporate America? I guess let me ask it that way.
So I wasn't with her before,
Okay,
the first few times, right?
okay,
Later on, she was.
okay,
And I think she was very supportive in a sense of wanting me to go after what I was particularly passionate about. And she was supportive in a number of different ways that helped me be able to move forward, both through good and bad times, which really speaks, a lot as far as like having, a life partner, somebody that,
yeah.
is with you through the thick and thin that I'm very
Yeah.
much appreciative of.
Yeah. Don't try that relationship though, right? I had I had a guy on the show and he said, "Hey, I was married less than a week," and he came home and said, "Honey, I quit my job." And she was like, "What?" I mean, and then they jumped into it and obviously it worked out, but I think honoring and respecting everyone around you needs to be at least in your mind to be able to make sure you're making those decisions in a smart spot. So that's awesome that you have that there. So hey, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, I want to transition into some limiting thinking and being stuck in your day to day and not achieving your results. So we'll be right back. Welcome back. I'm honored to be hanging out with Philip Blackett, author, consultant, and entrepreneur. And we're having a great discussion about his journey. And I see in some of the writings and some of the things that you've done, you started to talk about limiting your thinking. Is that something that you dealt with for yourself? Did you struggle with that? Do you struggle with that? How did that show up for you?
Yeah, so I think, you know, I kind of think about it in the sense, Dave, that, I didn't come out of my mother's womb knowing all that I know now, right? So
Wait a minute,
I,
you said you did, so now you're changing your story. So no, I'm kidding.
no, I think part of it is understanding that, listen, you're learning as you go, and oftentimes you're putting your thoughts up against something new that's letting you're looking at it from a limited point of view right now, and you're trying to stretch it, trying to grow it,
Yeah,
and it can come off in the sense that sometimes that you might be a little bit frightened to take
sure.
it the next step, or you might be feeling a little bit vulnerable, just by the sense that you might be surrounded by people who are thinking a whole different level than you are. But the
Yeah,
question, I guess, is more so not so much if that happens, what do you do? It's just how do you respond to that? And are
yeah.
you content thinking the way you are, especially when you're exposed to a different way of doing it?
Well, and I think like for people listening, it could be as simple as you right now thinking, "Oh, I could never do that. I could never quit the comfort of my job, my 401k, my insurance. I could never quit, the salary and go, I mean, there's a lot of those thoughts that may very well be true and that may not be your journey. I just don't want people to limit their thinking. If there's something they want to do, there are ways around that. So do you remember anything in your world, Philip, that really limited your thinking in your career so far?
Yeah, I think what comes up top of mind, Dave, is just kind of what you said before. It's just, you want to try to make this an apples to apples comparison if possible. If you got a really nice salary and benefits and all this going on, and you're thinking about entrepreneurship,
Yeah,
it's probably not going to look the same as a part as, okay, I have all this established and already running every week or every 2 weeks, a check comes in. If I
yeah,
get sick, I'm covered for, I have the company car and all this sort of thing. And I'm going to trade all that to start ground zero.
yeah,
It's probably not an easy comparison to make you feel particularly motivated to take that leap of faith.
right.
One of the things that's always helped me is just thinking about it in terms of, you know, what can you grow into in terms
Mm,
of having something that, okay, I'm full time in my job now,
yeah,
but I'm working on my fortune part time. Like, I think that's
sure.
something like I remember hearing or learning from Jim Rohn at one point. He's like, I have a full time job, but I'm working on my part time fortune.
Yeah,
And you work on that until your part time fortune can equate to your full time job, which makes it easier
sure.
for you to have that conversation either with yourself or with your significant other
Yeah,
on making a switch, right?
yep,
Hopefully
yep,
sooner, hopefully at a better time than the guest you were talking about before. But
yep,
nevertheless, it's one where it's just like, you know, that's how I kind of look at it, where it's just like
sure.
you compare it to what would make it an easier jump, what
Yeah,
would make it
absolutely.
more bearable in that sort. So I think that kind of helps too. Just like how can you do that? And if that means you kind of take baby steps while you're working a job, or you're
Yep,
trying things out on the side, or
yep,
you're working weekends and nights, and seeing how this goes. I guess that could be a safer way, which is
yep,
not a problem
sure.
at all because who knows how that pans out. That could be the best starting point for many people. That could
Sure.
lead into them saying, "Hey, I've reached a point where I can make a switch. I'm making just as much or close to what I'm already making, and I
Yep.
think we're hitting some momentum here." I think it's time for us to make that leap.
Yeah, that's great. And I always tell everybody that, hey, there's no right or wrong way to do this. There's no one way that works and the others that don't. You love that grow into type thing. That's what you just explained. That's a great way to do it. For me, completely opposite. I sold one business on a Tuesday and started my next business on a Wednesday. And, again, neither one's right or wrong, good or bad. There's no real, set way to do it. I just want people listening right now, Philip, to kind of just take the blinders off for a second. What could be possible? What is possible? What are some things that you enjoy doing? Because like you talked about being stuck in the day to day, um, that's not fun either because, when people dread going to work, that's not a healthy spot to be. And right now, Gallup shows in their research that only 1 in 3 people are engaged in their job when they show up, which means 2 out of 3 people don't want to be there. They're not engaged. They love saying it's not my job. They love, spending extra time in the restroom so they don't get picked for something, whatever that looks like. So, when you wrote that and when you were talking about being stuck in the day to day, was that from experience for you? Were you there, or was that more watching other people? I'm just curious.
Yeah, I'd say that's definitely from experience. I mean, now I can say that both experience as both an employee and an employer.
Okay,
Just
sure.
like those examples you're talking about before, like I better understand where someone may be coming from as far as feeling that way.
Yeah,
And I also resonate with the fact that if I'm asking you to do a certain job and you're taking extra time in the bathroom because you don't want to be working on something,
yeah,
that's not a good thing. Because
yeah,
to me, I'm still paying you for that time. And basically, it almost equates to stealing,
right. Yep,
right? And if it's something
yep,
that if you feel this is not for you, or you
sure,
don't feel particularly engaged, I would much rather have a conversation about it to see how we can fix the problem, what
right.
solution we can provide. If nothing else, um,
Yeah,
maybe point you in the right direction elsewhere, and maybe
yeah,
somebody else that will love to do what you're doing. Maybe that's the right fit for him or her to step in, as opposed to you, and maybe we
right.
can help out both people. So I think that, yeah, I think that's kind of one of the valuable lessons for me up to this point is being able to really think about those type of perspectives on both ends, on both ends of the spectrum to say, hey, and that plays a role in terms of if I'm going about having a team of employees, you're
Yeah,
thinking about it as far as what type of environment, what type of culture am I trying to cultivate here? So
right.
you lessen the chances of that happening where you have 2/3 of people disengaged with their job or
Yeah,
considering quiet quitting, which is kind
yeah,
of one of the new terms nowadays.
yeah.
Um, if for nothing else, you want to have a better setting for the people that work with you, and you also want the right people in the right places.
Yeah, well, I tell you, it's gotta be tough to be on a team where either you don't like the team. I mean, I just think about it. Imagine not liking the company, imagine not liking the job, imagine not liking the team, not liking the customer. I mean, it's just like, wow, right? I mean, what a kind of a ugly, sticky place to be. I don't know that because I pretty much own my own business my whole life. There's been plenty of days where I wish I was the cart boy at Walmart and, where I just would love to, just focus on getting the carts out of the corrals in the parking lot, especially now, Philip, because they got a machine that does all the heavy lifting. You don't
Mm-hmm.
even have to do anything other than kind of move a button. But, I don't want people listening today to be stuck unless they want to be.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't have to be stuck. When I don't know what that looks like you said, maybe you look for another job, maybe you look for another, maybe just changing your attitude might, be a positive step in the right direction. Maybe you'd look for a different team to be on within your organization. Um, you know, I saw like Chick-fil-A, FedEx, Bank of America, Goldman Sachs. I saw some big names that you were involved with in your career. So those bigger companies handled that engagement. Have you seen anything that you could share with the people listening today?
Well, I think for any of those type of companies, those bigger companies, I think they have departments that, are tasked with, how do we improve employee engagement, right? And, I think part of that of what goes on with that is, we're not mind readers. They like
Yeah,
if there's something that's troubling you, if there's something you want to do, you got to be able to voice it out, because you don't necessarily have people that are already thinking in terms of what do you want and always try to position you because you might be completely content in what you're already doing.
right.
So I think it's one that comes off where it's like, okay, do you have a place where you can share your thoughts candidly
Yeah,
with someone, and more so not so much just to vent, but more so to say, hey, this is the scenario. This is what I'm hoping to achieve. I could appreciate someone that's looking to help aid me in where I'm trying to go. And I think for those type of bigger companies, they have the staff necessarily that can help position in the right direction.
sure. Well, and that kind of ties into your book, Disagree Without Disrespect, because I wrote as soon as you said candid, the first thing I thought of people are going to say is, man, if I'm candid, Philip, I'm going to get fired. I mean, so there's already a lack of trust, I'm guessing, in a lot of workplaces to begin with. I can't tell them what I'm really thinking or feeling or, wanting to do because they're going to fire me. That's kind of I think that's probably still old school thinking, but I'm guessing it's pretty prevalent. So, I mean, and right now, 3 out of 4 people quit their job because of their leaders. Leaders are still a big reason that people are quitting. So I'm just curious from your perspective, and in light of your book with the disagree without disrespect, as we start to land the plane today, what are a couple of ways that we can disagree, whether it's politically, faith about faith, but in this case, it's really about my job and, I'm a leader or you're the leader and you and I don't align. How am I able to come to you as a team player, as a team member, and say that I have some issues and not get terminated and still respect you? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I think one of the biggest things that come off with the statistic you talked about as far as people leaving bad bosses, right? Or
Right.
bad
Yep.
teams.
Yep.
A great element that should be considered there is what's the trust level between the employee and his or her boss, his
Right.
or her team. Do you feel like you can truly be yourself? Do you feel like you can come up with a opinion that may be in the minority of opinions, and
Yep.
you feel like it can be taken seriously or not taken lightly or
Hmm.
silenced, right?
Sure.
Um, it may seem old school. It's like I feel like I can't say something or else I get fired. I would imagine it's probably not old school because there probably are people that feel that way now. It
Right.
might have happened years ago, but there's probably people now that have that same sort of fear and concern because there's not a level of trust where they can be vulnerable.
Right.
There's not a level of trust where they can truly be honest with people. And it's definitely the case where it's not helping where you have a certain majority opinion that for someone who has a dissenting view that they feel like they can be open enough to share that with people. If you don't have that diversity of thought in the workplace, for example,
Yeah.
um, it basically becomes either you're with the crew or you're out of a job,
Yeah.
right? And so I think that it's helpful when I think about my book and how it relates to the workplace.
Yeah.
More than likely, you're going to work with people who don't see eye to eye with how you see things. I can
Sure.
almost guarantee you, right?
Yeah. Yep.
But the big thing that comes off is one, can you work in an environment where You may disagree with an idea or belief, and you still respect and appreciate the person who holds that belief, right? It's kind of
Hmm.
a play on what I learned in church as far as hating the sin but loving the sinner.
Sure.
So even if you come up with an idea, Dave, that I disagree with,
Yeah.
does my view of you all of a sudden change because you have that view? Or is it one where it's like, let's walk through this together, let's talk about
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
And it's okay that you have this. And I appreciate you trusting me enough to share this with me, share it with me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I've been in situations where I didn't feel the trust was there for me to be honest. And it wasn't that I lied to people. I
Sure.
just didn't participate. I
Yeah.
just didn't include what was going on. And I would imagine there's other people that feel that way. And the biggest thing that comes off to me when I work with people, particularly like managers or leadership from that standpoint, and implementing what I wrote in my book is how do you create an environment that people can share what they are thinking, even if it's thinking different from others or believing different or voting different from others, and
Yeah.
still be able to appreciate the person who shared that. You debate the idea just on its merits. You don't get involved with name calling, no silencing, no shaming, no canceling, and that sort.
Yeah.
And even when you debate it, whether your idea won or lost, you can still be good sports about it. You
Sure.
don't have to have this sense of awkwardness and now I can't come to the team meeting because my idea got shot down. And they're just going to look at me as, oh, that's Dave with that horrible idea. I don't know
Yeah.
why he's still here.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And then the last part I would say is like, yeah, it should be a place where there's a free marketplace of ideas. And at the same time, you value the relationship more so than being right or wrong. So
Yeah.
it might be the sense that Dave, we appreciate you presenting your idea, even though we're going in a different direction here after we talked about it and debated it. We do appreciate you sharing that with us. We love for you to continue feeling comfortable and open enough and secure enough to share thoughts and ideas that you think can move our company and our team forward. And
Yeah.
if something like that comes up, we would love to have another conversation. If
Sure.
something comes up, that you want to talk about, like if you want to bring it up in a team meeting or if you want to bring it up just to me individually as your manager,
Sure.
the door is open. So you
That's
keeping the
awesome.
dialogue open
Yeah.
and you're valuing the relationship of you two working together more so than trying to advocate who's right and who's wrong. I
Right.
think that's a great way to look at it where, what I write in the book is definitely applicable to workplaces nationwide where people
Sure.
can feel like they can have a better trust factor that can keep people feeling comfortable working with the teams that they work
Yeah.
on, even if they don't see eye to eye on every issue.
Wow. Well, and I tell you, I think I wrote down the word ground rules because I almost feel like if there are ground rules for meetings or ground rules for, conflict, because we do conflict resolution training, and when I ask people in the audience, what are some words that you associate conflict with? Philip, 99 times out of 100, they're negative words.
Mhm.
People don't realize that conflict can be positive. And so I think that understanding that is really important. Do you cover that in your book that there is some positive conflict and healthy conflict that can happen?
Yeah. I mean, a section of the book is talking about transforming conflict into connection.
Okay.
You wouldn't have connection with a conflict potentially if you didn't see conflict as an opportunity.
Sure.
What is an opportunity of? Conflict is an opportunity to learn of different viewpoints, dig deeper beyond the surface, understand the backstory, the perspective.
Sure.
If you said, no, I'm against this, Dave, and I never inquired why,
Yeah.
I'm just stuck with the surface. Here's
Yep.
your vote on it. But if
Yep.
I try to dig a little bit deeper, try to understand, okay, tell me more about that. How
Yeah.
did that impact you? Why is it so strong of a feeling for you? Is there something more that I need to know that would be helpful for me better understanding where you're coming from, Dave?
Right.
Like these sort of
Yep.
things, just the simple like acting like you care enough to ask questions and then actively listening afterwards.
Sure. Yeah.
That's how you can take conflict in a way to disarm it from
Yeah.
being negative to an opportunity where you're not looking at the other person as your adversary or your enemy. You're looking
Sure.
at somebody as more like an ally,
Yeah.
more like a friend, more like a
Right.
collaborator. So instead of you arguing across the table of one another, now you can sit next to each other, share notes, and say, hey, how do we make this work for everybody involved?
Yeah. Wow. Well, and again, it just I don't know. I wrote down, can you agree to disagree? Is that like something, is that an important cog in this wheel? Because if we may not agree on something, but how can we still be in, connection with each other, like you said? Or are those, can you be connected with somebody you don't agree with, I guess is my question.
Of course. Of course. I think agreeing to disagree oftentimes is used when you don't have enough time or desire to delve into the conflict to better
Yeah,
understand each other.
sure,
It could be something where you just, hey, you said yes, I said no. Okay, let's just agree to disagree and we move on.
sure.
Do you really
Yeah,
feel like you're heard during that time or that experience?
right.
No. Do you
Yeah,
feel like the person really cares about that? No. It's just more so like, hey, we're just going to move on. We're going to
yeah,
table this and you
yeah,
might get back to it. You might
yeah,
not. So I think with regards to agreeing to disagree, I think it's much helpful to do that when you at least make some attempt to better understand the other person's viewpoint and vice versa. And
mm,
if it's something where you still need to make a swift decision on sooner rather than later,
yeah,
then that's fine. You can vote on it and you can agree to disagree and move forward. But I think what often comes up here nowadays, whether it's culture or society, I think we're so quick to say something just to get it done with.
yeah.
We're not even interested to learn more. What's the
Yep,
path of least resistance, and we'll just go
yep.
off of that.
Check it off the list. Yep,
Exactly. I
absolutely.
said I said what
Yeah.
was supposed to be said. I don't care beyond that. Let's move forward. I'm just here so I don't get fined, sort of thing.
Right. Yeah. Well, and I think we know as we land today, I think we know we can tell other people, the more self-aware that we are, and the more social awareness we have of other people, the more we're able to tell who's really like open and who's not.
Hmm.
Like you just said, I'm trying to, you know what? I'm just going through the list and I'm checking these off and I don't really care. I'm just getting this done, and it's not like we're talking about, what flavor ice cream, these are big decisions a lot of times in these in these buildings, should we have this customer? Should we acquire this customer? Should we acquire this new product or should we go in this new direction? I almost feel like leaders expect the team to collaborate and ask and give their opinion. If somebody sits in a meeting and doesn't share anything, Philip, I'm like, why are you even here? If you're not going to add value to this. So I almost feel like it's a prerequisite that you're in a meeting. There is expectation for you to share your opinion. It may not align with the end result, like you said, but I think that win lose mentality is, oh, I lost that one, therefore I'm not going to say anything ever again. That's not really healthy either. And so, I love the book name. I think that, disagreements are okay. It's when it crosses that line into disrespect, like you said, right? Um, and I mean, I just think about it like when I get pulled over, I got pulled over a couple years ago now it's been, because I rolled a stop sign. And the guy pulled me over, cop pulled me over, and he said, "Do you know what you did?" And I'm like, "I think so. I think like he wants to know, right?" And I didn't disagree because I'm like, I'm not gonna lie. You caught me, right? And I think that in that scenario, fortunately, he was like, "Hey, just work on that moving forward." That's way healthier in my mind I'm still talking about it now, whether if I would have got a ticket, I would have just been like, whatever, pay the ticket and go on. So I feel like there can be learning in that disagreement. And my last question for you on that is, do you feel like people that are going into it to learn, or are we just like staunchly, opposing without even really knowing what we're opposing sometimes?
Yeah, I think it's a mix of both, Dave. It really depends on the person. I think that's what makes it so unique,
Yeah,
where you're going to come across people that genuinely care and want to learn and better understand. They're seeking to understand rather than just to be understood, as Stephen Covey
yep,
would say.
yep,
Um, and then you also got some people that their mind is made up and they don't want to hear anything different from what they already think or
mhm,
believe or vote
yeah,
on. And so
yep,
I think it's like your just sheer existence in front of them and their presence
yeah,
is a nuisance
yep,
because you're not falling in line with what they believe. And I think
yeah,
that to me is what's the issue because we're human beings. We're
yeah,
not like computers that think it's either one or zero.
yeah,
There's not. There's a spectrum between 0 and 1 that
yep,
people are on where it's like some people are like 0.26, some people are
yeah,
0.78, where what it means is it's not clearly black or white on every matter. There's some
sure,
nuance, there's some gray matter that if you're not taking the time to at least acknowledge that it's not as open and shut as you like it to be or as
sure,
simplistic as you want it to be, that you're precluding yourself from being able to better understand people.
sure,
And what it shows is a bit of prejudice that we have to be careful for because that's what can help people say, hey, I don't feel particularly comfortable working with this person. I don't
yeah,
feel like I could trust this person. And after a certain point, that's what can have somebody say, hey, I'm at a point where I don't want to work with this person or this team anymore. And
yeah,
I either want to find a different assignment, a different department, or a different company altogether.
right, yeah. And really, that's a tough spot. As hard as it is to find good quality people, if you have good quality people leaving your company on a consistent basis, I'd be looking like at those things that you're talking about, Philip. That's awesome. Last question. What would your tip of the day be for somebody listening? Maybe it's something that we talked about. Maybe it's something that's on your heart that you want to share for somebody. But what would your, tip of the day be for somebody listening?
Kind of similar to what I said earlier. There's on any particular issue, topic, or whatnot, it's not always black or white. It's not always 0 or 1. There's a
Yeah,
lot of nuance and gray matter that there's a wealth of experience you can learn from somebody that is in the middle or is trying to decipher or decide which way to go,
yeah,
either yay or nay. And there may
yeah,
be other reasons beyond what you already know of for you. And so, if we're not open minded and curious to at least want to learn more and ask the right questions and actively listen to the responses we get from the other person,
right.
even if they come off different from how we view it, then I would question, are we in an environment where diversity of thought can actually exist?
Yeah, yeah. Oh, that's good stuff. I tell you, black or white is easy. I was born and raised in a black or white family, and everything was either right or wrong, right? There was two boxes. There's a good box and a bad box. And then as you start to get older, you realize that's like, wow, there's this third box called maybe or sometimes or
It
gray, like
depends.
you said. It depends, right? It's like, because it's and then I start going into situation ethics and I start going, oh my gosh, I get all messed up and I'm like, can I ever speed? Well, yeah, you know what? If somebody's in the back seat dying and you got to get them to the hospital, then I think, you know what? For me personally, I wouldn't have any problem speeding like that. But that's awesome. Thank you so much, Philip, for hanging out. If somebody's listening today and something sparked them, what's a great way for people to connect with you?
Sure. So I think for me, I'm on social media. Just look up my name, Philip Blackett, Philip Blackett. I'm on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, YouTube. You can also go to my website, philipblackett.com. If you're a business owner looking to scale your business with a dream business makeover from me and AI, you can go to dreambusinessmakeover.com. And then if there's any books you might be interested in that I've written, you can go to Amazon, just look up my name, and whether it's Disagree Without Disrespect, How to Respectfully Debate with Those Who Think, Believe, and Vote Differently from You, or another book that I might have written earlier,
Sure.
it's listed on Amazon. You can definitely check it out.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Disagree without respect. What a great topic. What a
Disagree
great
without disrespect, I'll say.
disrespect. Gosh, you know what? You'd think I'd figure that out. Disagree without disrespect.
There you
So
go.
that one works way better. Yeah, you won't find the other one, disagree without respect. You probably won't find that, at least not from Philip. So, Philip, thank you so much for hanging out with us today. And thank you for all you're doing. And can't wait to keep learning from you.
Absolutely. Likewise, Dave. Thanks for the opportunity to have this conversation. Love to do it again sometime.